an award-winning filmmaker bringing underrepresented voices and cultural narratives to the forefront with a distinguished career spanning decades. She will be presenting her film We Still Live Here as Nutayuneân, about the Wampanoag tribe reclaiming their language after over a century, and how it has inspired other language revitalization efforts. Please welcome Anne Appleton Makepeace.
Hi, actually,
Hello.
Thank you so much for including me in this very impressive conference. I really appreciate that. I am a filmmaker, not a linguist, so I like to have my films speak for me. So most of my presentation will be showing you clips from the film, but just very briefly, this is a 1 hour long documentary about the reclamation of a long silent language of the Wampanoag people of southern Massachusetts, basically. There are two main communities. One is on Cape Cod, Mashpee, and the other is on Martha's Vineyard. And the star of my film, although she would kill me for saying it, because in all the Native communities I've worked in, it's not about the individual, it's about the community. But nevertheless, she's an absolutely amazing person who, when all this started, she had not gotten an undergraduate degree. She ended up getting a master's in linguistics at MIT and engaging her community shortly after, or maybe it was while I was still making the film. I can't remember. She got a MacArthur Genius Award. So she's just an incredible person, and you will see her in this. So I'm going to start by showing the trailer. It's a minute-long trailer. And then I'm going to stay on screen share. So I don't think you'll see me unless you see me on the side while I show clips.
You don't know who the Wampanoags are until you say, well, we're the people who met the Pilgrims.
I don't think we know with any certainty when the last fluent speaker of Wampanoag died, but it's probably more than a century.
May is our first native speaker in 7 generations. If she's the first, there necessarily has to be a second and a third and a fourth. Language can come home again.
Kunipiam, welcome.
Okay, so that is the trailer. So now I'm going to go to the actual film. Okay, well.
So these people that look familiar are talking to me. I don't know what they're saying. And they wouldn't let me go. They said, you're not going to go until you tell us what that means. And I just said the first thing that came to mind. And that was, we're still with you. Some years later, I figured out what it meant. They were not saying, we're still with you. They were saying, we've been killed with the yellow thing. And I was, oh my God, they must have been talking about yellow fever. In 1616, yellow fever swept from Provincetown to Narragansett Bay and killed 2/3 of the population.
Some people say over 100,000. Some people say 70,000. But a good guess is over 2/3 were wiped out within a 2-year span. 4 years before the Pilgrims got here.
It was known to have come from European fishermen. After contact with these fishermen, people up north must have become ill and just went like wildfire right down the coast.
They said for our 200 miles up the coast going towards Maine that there was not a soul to be seen on the coastline. Nothing but empty houses and bleached bones.
People's whole lives change. I mean, you're just literally watching people all around you just fall down dead within 2 days or 3 days. It was that quick once it hit.
So can you hear me now? You can. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of history. First contact with the Wampanoags was 400 years ago. So, their language pretty much disappeared about 100 years ago. And there were lots of different kinds of pressures on the tribe to become Christian and give up their languages and their cultures. And eventually that worked, although the culture was still alive, but the language was not spoken. So I'm going to show you the next clip where Jessie and her community decide to do something about the language loss. Let's see, 24. This is about right. So this is Jessie with her community in Aquinnah, which is on Martha's Vineyard, talking about how they decided to do something about reclaiming their language.
On it, and from all the different Wampanoag communities, we had to bring it all together and figure out how we could get it in a cohesive way.
The decision was finally made that yes, we're going to try to work on this language and we're going to support it fully and we're going to work together, which was an historic decision in and of itself.
Nobody said no. Nobody said I'm not interested. Nobody said don't do it.
I wouldn't have to ask that.
This never happens, I tell you.
Luckily, we had the written language there to see where the basis of where it all came from. All of the town halls around here, and a lot of the original deeds, a lot of the original documents are all in Wampanoag. If you go back far enough, you'll find them all. And she says, "Oh yeah," and she started looking around.
We're just lucky that the native written documents for this language is the largest corpus of native written documents on the continent.
The Wampanoag people learned how to write in Wampanoag very early because they knew that that was a tool that they could use in dealing with the white settlers. Because when you deal with the white settlers, you're dealing with courts, you're dealing with lots of written documents.
There was constant letters and petitions to Boston, to the colonial government, to the American government, depending on the time period. The overseers doing this, the English are doing that. Can you stop them? Can you help us? And on and on and on.
The documents that are written by hand by people, I mean, it just gives me the chills. It's like you can see their hand, it just makes it almost like touching that document is like touching their hand. And what those documents kind of symbolize to me is like that thread that is attached to me, to my ancestors, through my blood, through my body, and through my spirit.
I'm going to skip ahead. So there's a part of the film that I was going to show, but since we got a late start, I'm going to skip that and just give you a little summary of it. Let me get to 19. So the part we're skipping, Jessie is meeting with people and they're trying to figure out how do we do this, because Jessie had no training in linguistics. Nobody had any training in linguistics. And they invited this guy from MIT, Ken Hale, to speak to them about how they might reclaim their language. And Jessie was very nasty to him. She felt he was pompous and, imperious. And so she was really rude to him. And then cut to, I don't know, a year or so later, she found out about a fellowship at MIT. So this is the section where she's going for an interview for the fellowship. Or actually, this is when she's got it, but it's her first week in class.
Professor and make a meeting and see if that person will tell you which classes to take. So I said, oh, easy enough. I'm going through the catalog. Like, oh, Ken Hale. Oh, crap. It's the guy from the meeting a few years ago. Oh man, I'm sunk. And I started to panic. And I said, no, I'll profusely apologize because I did behave badly. I'll beg him. I'll do whatever I have to do. And it's only one meeting. So I opened the door and he looked at me and he said, I remember you. That's the first thing he said. You're Jessie Littledoe. He said, where have you been? I've been waiting for you. And at that point, I think I felt like as low as I should have felt for my behavior. And I just said, you know, before we start, I want to, and I was about to say apologize. And before I could, he said, before you say another word, please, please let me apologize for my smug behavior at our first meeting. But we started working that afternoon. We didn't even look at the course catalog and we started to work.
The idea of doing something to actually bring back a language that people thought had gone, I can see why it excited Ken. It excites me for the same reason. Just the idea that death, if we want to call it death, is not permanent for languages. They can come back.
Okay, so the next clip I'm going to show you is Jessie teaching, and this is, of course, after she's gotten her master's in linguistics into 28. And 2801. Sorry, it's a little hard to get pinpoint these times. This is close enough.
Not the sun. Yet they knew the moon was. They were really brilliant about their environment. So that was huge for me when I learned that. I'm like, oh, you know, Europeans just figured this out a few hundred years ago, and we've known straight along. But if you figured there was a time when there was nothing else here but the earth.
You have a kind of access to your own language that you can never have to somebody else's language. So there are all kinds of linguistic insights that are only available to native speakers.
All the birds, all the animals, all the bugs, all the flies, all animate.
So there are all kinds of things that we can only learn about these languages if native speakers will begin to work on them.
Wampanoag language.
So how did you become fluent? Because you didn't have anybody to talk to.
I recorded stuff and talked to myself. So, and I still do it. So I'll take a document and I'll record a conversation. I'll type out a conversation based on what I have in the record, and I will record that conversation. I'll record questions, and I will teach. So I'll talk to myself basically. So I actually teach myself. Okay, so you have these documents. How do we really know if our sounds are correct? How do you know then, without a speaker, if you're on the right track, like how to pronounce things? There was a time, some thousands of years ago, when all of the people in the Algonquian-speaking communities came from one community. So there are roughly 40 languages in the family. A lot of these languages are still spoken. So if we're really not sure what's going on with an item, we can look at the spelling of the item, approximate it to something in Proto-Algonquian or these other languages, look at the corresponding sound changes across the vowels and consonants and know exactly predictably what the sound ought to be. Okay, so here they've spelled long A, SHQ as ASQ, which has to be Ashk, right? Mm-hmm. So you can see that people spell things any old damn way they felt like it.
So you're taking that from the Bible or from where?
Well, you could find something in the Bible or in other documents, but this is where these things come from. So they come from documents. So we're actually pulling words out of documents, okay? This one happens to come from the Wampanoag Bible. Okay, so all of the consonants, right? They're grouped into one because really they don't do anything all that fancy. So find the language in question, right? And tell me what it's going to go to. It would be that one.
John Eliot, who was a missionary here from England, was engaged in the translation of a Bible into Wampanoag. It's the first Bible that was published in this hemisphere. It was a Wampanoag Bible. It was published here in Boston. First of all, his goal was a certain amount of destruction of Wampanoag traditional culture, right? He was a missionary. He was trying to get rid of Wampanoag religions.
And the missionaries had a choice. They could either try to teach 100,000 Indians how to speak English, then try to convert them to Christianity, or convert all of the Christian materials into their language and have them learn in their language, which is what they did.
I think the pressure was, convert or die, basically.
Okay, I have a couple more clips, but do you want me to try to finish soon? I see it's 11:30 here.
You still have time, because of earlier we've got a little extra wiggle room.
Oh, good. Okay, that's great. Okay, so I'm going to show you another scene. 50. This is Jesse teaching kids, and a little bit of history about what happened with children in the 16 and 1700s. 45, yeah, 5, it's a little early. This is good enough.
Go, what's going to happen to my 6 children?
You could say that languages have revolution, and it's the children that change it constantly. I think it's our responsibility to leave our children possibilities. Doesn't mean that they have to act on those, but at minimum, I think on our watch, we shouldn't shut down possibilities for our children.
In the early times, the children were being taken out of our communities. The courts could mandate that you or I had a debt to repay. Maybe you have 5 or 6 children. And well, if I go, what's going to happen to my 6 children? However, if I send one of my children away to satisfy this debt, I can at least keep my other 5 children together. You start taking the children away and sending them off to Boston and other points unknown for years at a time, 10, 15, 20 years, they are completely indoctrinated in the community that they were living in. Guaranteed, they're not speaking their traditional language. With our children, the community dies, which was the point, I believe.
Okay, so cutting ahead to 48. This is another classroom scene, but 18. This is Jesse and Jason's little girl who became the first native speaker when she was born. Jesse and her husband Jason were fluent in Wampanoag, and they only spoke Wampanoag to her. So now she corrects them. She's very cute.
So we can follow the vision piece square? Mata? How about you want that? Because. How about you want that? Oh, son nunca sana konsu you not gonna? I know my daughter's always gonna love me and she's not gonna care whether I say something wrong or not. And usually she knows if I do, but it doesn't bother her.
One of the first language classes we did, we were asking what would washkitam, our word for man, what would it mean really? And our language teacher said surface walker, and all the guys were like, yeah, that's so cool, we're surface walkers. And so us women were like, wait, well, what would matamwasas mean, our word for woman? And it was interesting to find that it meant, the one who has complete say or judgment. And so all us women were like, yeah,
There's a crow. Well, all those different parts of it mean different things that describe that crow. Knowing how to say it and what it means. Conipium, welcome.
It started with Winnamashby, Herring Pond, and in a song. And it was just going on and spreading out.
When I speak Wampanoag, how much I love this language. I love the sound. I love the way that the words combine in meaning. I love being able to understand a different way of seeing the world through the words. I feel so much more connected to the person that I'm talking to, knowing that it's almost like a little secret club, like we're talking Wampanoag, you know, and how excellent is that?
Okay, and just one more short one.
I'm so
in this clip, the voice you're hearing is Noam Chomsky.
that we have the ability to do something about the past with the language. It's an excellent way to make lemonade out of lemons. We were given lots of lemons as a result of our history.
Oh, wait.
Now we have to find a way to find happiness in our life and in our culture.
Oh, I screwed up there. So the clip I wanted to show you with Noam speaking is somewhere back here. Oh, this is out of order. This is the one Noam invites her to join the graduate program at MIT.
Mel, her work is really good. We really need to have her here. This is groundbreaking work. I support this 100%. And he's like, look, he printed it out. He says, Noam Chomsky. And I said, wow, Ken, that's really great. Who the hell is Noam Chomsky?
I'm sure it was a perfectly selfish act. I thought the work was great. And she's just the kind of person we'd want in the department to carry it forward intellectually and socially and every other way. I mean, the fact that people can come in without a formal background and carry out such dramatic achievements is exciting.
Okay, sorry, and one more, the one I wanted to show you. That I thought I was showing you, but I wasn't.
Is embodied in them.
And so that's what the language does for me. It brings me a lot of
Got people.
Sorry. Control this.
Are now able to teach.
Have casual conversation first without a break, without having to stop and think about every word. And we just don't.
Embodied in it's what not just words. I mean, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a history that creates what a community is. So embodied in the language. So it's really the revival of a culture and way of life.
I'm so happy.
Okay. So If there's time for questions, I'm very happy to answer questions.
Of course, yes. Thank you so much. That that is fantastic. I know I'm going to be one of the people who's gonna go away and watch this after the conference, and I hope our attendees do as well. I actually had somebody email you to find out the pronunciation so I could introduce it properly. Um, so, does anybody have any questions about Anne's work or the film itself? Why Wampanoag? Why was that the language that you decided you needed to make a film about?
So I was hired by the PBS station in Boston to make part one of a film of a series about Native Americans. And the part I was hired to produce was about King Philip's War, which was a horrendous war in the 1670s, which nearly wiped out New England tribes. And that's how I got to know Jesse and the community. And things, for reasons I won't go into, kind of fell apart with the GBH project. But by that time, I felt like the really important story to tell was what was going on now with the language. And it was a very sensitive thing to propose, because the Wampanoags had a policy, the language group had a policy that they did not want the language to be used in anything that could be sold. And, you know, I'm an independent filmmaker. I raise funds through grants, but I have to show them that broadcasters are going to buy it, schools and colleges are going to buy it. So there was a very important meeting I had to, well, there's before that, I met first with Jesse and with Linda Coombs, who's the one with kind of the round face, was very important for the film, to suggest it. And I don't know, I never know how much story to go into, but at any rate, so I have an ancestor, William Makepeace, who fought in King Philip's War and took part in a massacre that I know about in 1675. And I said, well, because in many Native communities where I've worked, history is not past, you know. Ancestors are spoken to in the present tense, they're spoken about in the present tense. So, you know, I knew that it was important to tell them, and I told them that my ancestor took part in the Great Swamp Massacre, which was horrible. And Jessie said, without missing a beat, she said, well, you're closing the circle, which I thought was just incredibly generous and such large thinking. But then I had to propose it to the language program as a whole, and it was a very intense discussion. And finally, because people did not want to be seen struggling to speak their own language. That's really what it came down to. They found that would be embarrassing and humiliating. And I understand that. But finally, Jason, Jesse's husband, made this beautiful speech, which basically came down to maybe it's time to trust someone now to do that. And then it was a unanimous in support of going ahead. So that's how it all began.
But it's wonderful that you just sort of like ran with it and just made something so beautiful, and thank you for sharing that with us.